Hi there! In the last video I demonstrated how to make a small computer out of a Raspberry Pi and a solid-state disk or SSD. The resulting computer is perfect for minor lab usage, for example to do research on the internet and to handle tasks like uploading code to an Arduino board and the like. But certainly a Raspberry Pi is not capable of running video games with hardcore requirements. As a matter of fact, you need to have a PC with special characteristics to run heavy-duty video games, or your gaming experience really would be miserable. My son has such a gaming rig that I help him upgrade from time to time to keep it current with the new game needs. Last time, for example, we ended up replacing the whole motherboard and put on it a newer CPU and a lot more memory than he had before, a whopping 32 GB. But with upgraded rigs come new appetites, and he soon started running games that required much more processing power. And soon he had to turn down features on the games, because they otherwise would not run at an acceptable speed. Less resolution, less shades, less everything, and still at times the games ended up with a frame rate that wasn't just enough to be able to effectively play any new game. It was finally time to change the video card with something much more powerful than the one he had. And so we did. We bought a new card, and I replaced the existing one with a new one. The new one still is not the top of the line, because with the current shortage of components the prices have raised to the stars, but is still good enough to give him some breath for a couple of years to come. In this video I will show you how I replaced the card and the measurements I took before and after to see what improvement we got with the new piece of equipment. Take a look at the recording of the introductory video of Dark Souls Remastered that we made before changing the card. Look how slow it is. It's just a few frames every second, no way to play a game in these conditions. We also collected some data using a tool that makes measurements of the frames per second generated by the game. This is called Fraps and is freely available on the internet. The tool generates data in CSV format that can easily be ported to a spreadsheet and used to make some interesting charts. Here are the results we got from the first 60 seconds of running the introduction of Dark Souls Remastered. You can see that the frames rate varies continuously and remains very low, definitely below the threshold rate that allows our eyes to see a smooth animation. See the several places where the rate goes down to 11 frames per second, and see how it never exceeds 18 frames per second. That's why we got such a bad recording of the introduction, and why my son was asking for a new video card since a while now. The video card came in this nice box. It's a GeForce GTX 1660 Super Gaming X from MSI, which is using NVIDIA technology. Here are the specs from the MSI website. Most noticeably, we can see that this card has 1408 cores running at 1830 MHz. It has 6 GB of GDDR6 memory at 14 GB per second with a 192 bits bus. Has also a total of 4 output ports, of which 3 are display ports and 1 is an HDMI port. It supports DirectX 12, OpenGL 4.5 and also virtual reality, and has a maximum resolution way beyond 4K. After removing the wrapping, I opened the box, which is a very nice box, shielding the card from impacts. There was also some documentation in the black envelope. The user guide and the instruction on how to install it in a PC. And also there is a thank you card. And here is the actual blade, obviously wrapped in an anti-static bag. I did not worry too much in handling the card, since the white mat you see in the video is anti-static and is connected to the ground, and I was also electrically connected to ground. The card looks like a really big boy. Here is the 8-pin connector to provide enough juice for the card to run at its maximum performance, and on the opposite side you can see there is the PC bus, which is nicely protected by this cap to prevent oxidation of the contacts. Here are the output connectors, each one with a dust protecting cap, a very nice feature. This is one of the 3 display ports. This other one is the HDMI port, and the remaining 2 are also display ports. So there is a total of 4 ports, all usable at the same time on 4 different monitors. And you can see that each port has a label stating what type it is. Here are some openings that are part of the air cooling system, and there is also this piece of plastic that needs to be removed from the top of the fan. By the way, fans are very well designed and move smoothly. MSI calls this technology Tor-X Fan 3.0, which they say is designed to obtain the maximum cooling with a minimum noise. There is a big heat sink behind the fans with fins to increase the surface where the heat transfer happens, and you can also see on the side some tubing to help the transfer of the heat away from the hot components, the CPU and the memory. And finally, there is a metal plate posted on the back of the card, probably to help with the EM shielding, but also for greater physical strength given the weight of the card. Let's now see how I performed the card replacement. Here is the PC case, a relatively old one, which I and my son modified when we replaced the motherboard about a year ago. Here is the back of the case, where the DVI connectors of the existing video card are visible. I started by opening the case. For that, I needed to remove the 2 screws that hold the side panel in place. You can see there is a hole in the panel, for which the top part of the CPU cooler comes out. And this is the case modification I talked about a moment ago. When we replaced the motherboard, we also installed a new CPU and a new cooling system for it, to make sure that the CPU would not overheat while playing games. The cooler, unfortunately, was too tall for the case, just about 4 mm taller, but they were enough to prevent the panel from closing. And we therefore made this hole, which in turn increases even further the airflow, allowing for a better cooling. Well, if you plan to do something like this on your gear, please be careful. Extra holes need to be carefully positioned, or the ventilation could suffer instead of improving. Anyway, once removed the screws, I slid the panel sideways and then lifted it. Here is the inside of the system, which I try to make as tight as possible, to help with the airflow inside. You can see that all the cables are kept out of the way with zip ties. This one is the existing video card, and you can certainly figure out how old it is from its shape and size. I had here a power connector, but this was a 6-pin normally used for extra CPUs, not the 8 pins that I needed for the new card. But there was the appropriate connector on the power supply unit, fortunately, and so I could just add another cable to it. To remove the card, the old one, I needed to remove a screw on the side, then unlock the latch on the motherboard, and the old card came out right away. Let's go now to the new card installation. There was barely enough space for it, so I needed to be careful while putting it in. And of course, well, I forgot to remove the PCI connector cap. Oh well. What I did was to put the card above the connector and then push it down slowly but firmly, like that. Then the card was in position and I locked it back in place by putting back the external latch and the screw that holds it in place. This is a strange mechanism to keep the card in place. I do much prefer the classic chassis where each card is held in place by its own screws. Well, as long as it does its job, I don't really care. Now it was the time to connect the power supply using a new cable for it. This one here. First I plugged it in the power supply unit, which is not a simple thing to do because of the limited space. In the other end I had two connectors, so I plugged one in and I strapped the cable on the other connector on the other side to keep it out of the way. One zip tie to hold all the cables together, and another zip tie to keep the bundle close to the side of the chassis so it will not float around the case. Just a few more checks to make sure that everything was okay, and then I put the panel back and locked it in place. Done! It was now time to reconnect the PC to the rest of the gaming gear and give it a try. Unfortunately I didn't shoot any video on that, but when I powered on the PC I was actually worried for a moment because Windows was still using the old driver and things were not looking right on the monitor. However, as soon as I opened the system configuration to try to fix the issues, Windows 10 had already found the right driver on the internet and was already installing it without me doing anything. And so, just a couple of minutes after turning on the PC, everything was fine and in perfect order. And now, here is the same introductory video of Dark Souls Remastered that we watched previously with the old card. As you can see, there is objectively a great difference in behavior. Now the animation is much smoother and runs at an appropriate speed at its highest and more demanding settings. All features are on and 4K resolution. My son was ecstatic when he saw that. And in fact, if we take a look at the performance data I collected on the new card, we can see how the frame rate is consistently higher than before, running actually at the prescribed frame rate of this game, which is 60 frames per second. Well, this time I got two birds with one stone. I made my son happy and I made another video for you to enjoy. What else could I ask for? And if you were thinking of changing the video card on your own gaming PC, now you know that it is not a difficult thing to do. Just follow the instructions that come with the card and everything goes smoothly. If you're interested in buying the same card I used for my son's gear, I left for you an affiliated link in the video summary below, where you can also find the links to support the channel. And oh, don't forget to give me a thumb up and to subscribe so you can be notified when I post something new. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, happy experiments!